Have you ever felt that getting less of something was actually better? It sounds completely illogical, right? Well, it turns out there's a fascinating glitch in our brains that makes us think exactly that. It's a mental shortcut that shapes everything from the gifts we give to the food we eat. So, let's dive in and see how it works. All right, I want to start with a little puzzle. On the surface, the answer seems super obvious, but I promise you, it's probably not what you're thinking. This is all about how we figure out what something is worth. So just imagine for a second that a friend gives you a gift. You've got two options here. Which one of these would make you think, wow, that was incredibly generous of them? Okay, so you've got gift A, a $45 wool scarf. Now the key detail here is that it's a high-end scarf from a store where they cost between $5 and $50. Then you have gift B, a $55 wool coat. So, yeah, it's $10 more expensive, but it's a low-end coat from a store where coats can cost anywhere from $50 to $500. So, which person seems more generous?
And here is the kicker. When researchers actually asked people this question back in 1998, the overwhelming majority said the person who gave the cheaper $45 scarf was more generous. So what is going on here? How does less money somehow feel like more generosity?
Well, this strange mental quirk actually has a name. It's called the less is better effect, and it's a well-documented cognitive bias that tells us a lot about how our brains sometimes get things, well, a little bit wrong.
Basically, the less is better effect is this weird tendency we have to prefer a smaller or lesser option, but only when we see it by itself. The moment you put the two options side by side and let us compare them directly, the illusion shatters and we pick the better one. It was a researcher named Christopher Hsee who first put a name to this. And this quote from Hsee really nails it. He wrote that the effect was observed only when the options were evaluated separately. That separation is the magic ingredient. Without a direct comparison, our brain gets easily fooled. And trust me, this isn't just a quirky little thing about gifts. The evidence for this effect pops up in some really unexpected places. Let's start with another one of Hsee's classic experiments from that same study. This one involves everyone's favorite, ice cream. You're not going to believe this. When people saw these options one at a time, they were willing to pay more for option B. That's right, they valued 7 ounces of ice cream in a small, overflowing cup more than 8 ounces of ice cream in a big, half-empty cup. The visual of it looking full was way more powerful than the actual amount of ice cream they were getting. Crazy, right? Okay, but it gets even weirder when you start adding things that are clearly negative into the mix. This brings us to the very strange case of the broken plates. So imagine you're asked to say how much these two dinnerware sets are worth. Set A is simple, 24 perfect pieces. Set B has the exact same 24 perfect pieces, but it also has a few extra plates that are broken. Now logically, set B has more stuff, right? But people consistently said that set A, the smaller perfect set, was more valuable. Adding broken junk didn't just add nothing, it actually made the whole package seem worse.
Now, this bias doesn't just mess with our sense of value. It can have a huge impact on our emotions. And there is no better example of this than the bizarre paradox of Olympic medal winners.
So, studies have actually looked at the reactions of athletes on the podium, and they found something that just feels wrong. Bronze medalists often look way happier than silver medalists. But why? It's all about their frame of reference. The silver medalist is standing there thinking, I was so close to gold. But the bronze medalist? They're often thinking, wow, I almost didn't get a medal at all. For them, coming in third feels like a massive win. Okay, so this effect is clearly a real thing that shows up all over the place. But this brings us to the big question. Why? Why does our brain even do this? What's going on in our heads? Hahn's main theory is called the evaluability hypothesis. The core idea is that our brain is kind of lazy. When it's looking at something all by itself, it grabs onto whatever is easiest to judge. Asking, is this cup overflowing, is a simple yes or no. Trying to guess the exact number of ounces, that's hard. So our brain just takes the shortcut and judges based on the easy factor, not the important one. Now, a couple of other psychological ideas are at play here too. You've got counterfactual thinking, which is just that what-if game the Olympians are playing in their heads. And then there's something called the representativeness heuristic. Basically, it means we judge a whole collection based on its average quality. So when you throw broken plates into a perfectly good set, you lower the average and the whole thing feels cheaper. So, this is all fascinating psychology, but how does it actually show up in the real world?
And more importantly, once you know about the less is better effect, you can start to spot it and even use it.
Here's where this really matters to you. Want to give a gift that feels super generous? Go for a top-of-the-line item from a cheaper category, like that scarf. Planning an event? A small room that's packed feels way more successful than a giant hall that's half empty. If you're selling something, it's almost always better to offer a perfect, curated package than one that's diluted with so-so items. And you can even trick your own brain. Serving food on a smaller plate can make you feel more full and satisfied.
At the end of the day, our brains are just wired to take shortcuts. The less is better effect is a perfect example of how context can trick us into valuing things in ways that just don't make logical sense. So I'll leave you with this thought. Now that you're in on the secret, where are you going to start seeing less being sold as more?